Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you had a bite to eat before we start the session. So, as friends and familiar folks with us know, this QR code that you see on stage right now is actually a portal to many great things that will be happening from next year. So if you are not already a member of our Stack community, please feel free to scan it, and that's how friends here as well have gotten the invitation, the notice to join us for this great session tonight. So a bit of house rules. We do have a combined Q&A session after the three presentations. So please think of all the questions, all the burning questions that you want to ask our speakers. And once the floor opens, you can just raise your hand and our folks will come over to you and pass you a mic. So once again, for people who might be new to us today, we are the GovTech-led tech community called Stack Community. So we do a lot of sessions like this across a whole range of topics. But today, what we are focusing on is data. And by joining us, once again, you would get all the latest news on such sessions. So these are very casual sessions where you can meet friends, new ones and old ones, and learn more about the tech that we are talking about this evening. Yep. So what I mentioned, today is actually a very exciting day because this is the start of our official Stack Meetup for Data. Basically, it's a session or a track that is meant specifically for you guys, data professionals, data practitioners, even enthusiasts if you are in some other tech specialization. So I wouldn't let you guys wait longer. I'll introduce Dr. Ghim on stage to share more about this program that we are having.
Okay, thank you. Yes. Hi, a bit of sound check. And the people at the back hear me? The one who is still, okay, very good. Thank you for the response. Okay, my name is Ghim. I'm the Director of Data Practice in GovTech. Basically, we look after exploration of technologies as well as setting of standards for the government. So when I say I take care of the government, I don't just mean GovTech. I take care of all the CIO teams, the data engineers that are spread around our good agencies trying to serve our citizens. Okay, so today there's a topic. Just now, the organizer shared that this is the first of what we want to try, right? So this is a trial. It's a pilot of a mini series focused on data. So today, when you look around you, you will see a community of people who are very interested in data. Okay, there could be other series like cybersecurity, AI. You can join multiple series, it's fine. But the aim of this new series is to cultivate this community, that you get to see the usual people, okay? You get to come earlier to enjoy the pizza and chit-chat and trade notes. I think that's the spirit of this community building we're trying to do. Content-wise, we have a very exciting layout. Okay, today there's a blend of private sector data engineering expertise as well as a public sector perspectives. Okay, we will be sharing candidly on the achievements as well as the challenges that we are facing. Some of the topics, if you are in the data area, you'll be familiar with data mesh. Okay, show of hand, how many people doesn't know what is a data mesh? Okay, nobody, okay? Everybody knows what's the data. So that's the trick, right? Ask the reverse question, okay? Anyway, data mesh and things like data contract certifications, all these will be covered by our first speaker, okay? Our guest from Grab, so the private industry. So please welcome him later after I go down, okay? And then following that, we will have our practice, sharing some of the work that we do as innovation. Okay, so one of the key things that we struggle to do is to classify our data properly or to determine the data quality and the privacy risk. Okay, all these topics will be covered. And finally, the third speaker will cover a whole government tool that we invented and created and today is available to all our agencies in response to previous data leaks and so on. So you will hear from the speakers. Without further ado, may I welcome the first speaker, Rong from Grab. Thank you.
Yeah, so very happy to be part of this first trial. I'm Rong from Grab. I work in a I work in a data tech team in Grab. So I think all of you or most of you here probably work with data one way or the other. So my team in Grab has a very simple motto, which is make data easy for all. So what we basically do is we provide tools to create, ingest data, process data, query data for all. So we just provide this tool for all folks to, in the hope that this could make data easy for everyone in Grab, basically, not just tech users. But what happened next? Perhaps more of a reflection on the fact that we actually achieved our goal. Data was really easy, and we have explosion of data across all of Grab. So we now have about 200,000 tables in Grab, generated by different folks across all departments and organizations. So, or perhaps it's a sign or symptom that our central team cannot keep up with the data demands. So everyone else have to create their own data for their own use. So what's the challenge when that happens, right? You have 200,000 tables. So the problem is like some of the tables are not necessarily really easy to identify in a way where you know exactly what it is for. Some of the tables are named like almost exactly the same name, kind of same but different. Sometimes it is exactly the same, but actually really different. The column names could be the same, right? What would be booking ID versus booking code? Is it really the same thing? This makes it really difficult for humans as well as agents. These days, it was more about semantic search and all that to work actually in the right way to figure out. So discoverability drops. So what happens if you realize you cannot find what you want? What's the first thing you think about doing? Which is, hey, I'm going to create my own table. So different teams go out there and figure out, hey, I'm just going to create my own table because I need to solve my own things for my own purpose. So now you have different subsets of data, different data that represents different things, right? So you have data being duplicated across. So which is the right thing? People couldn't figure out that out as well. So data duplication becomes a second problem coming out of poor discoverability. Now, when folks actually go out there and create their own data, a third problem arises. So people don't know whether the subset of data that was duplicated, whether it is actually for them or not. Basically, this could be ad hoc pipeline that's being generated for single use, but they still went on and take to use it. And the problem is when you have this sprawl of data pipelines, some is for ad hoc, some is not ad hoc, what happens is these pipelines could break in between and the data reliability across all our data pipelines actually drop. And what happens? The trust in terms of data ecosystem actually drops even more, and people determine, I'm going to build the whole data pipeline from ground up on our own. So you see this whole vicious cycles creates where they go out and create more data, data discoverability worsens, and then they go back and create more data on their own. So we have to figure out a way to stop this and create better trust in our data products in Grab. So we figure that, hey, our goal is to have trust in our data ecosystem. In order to achieve this, we need to make sure that our data products that is being generated are both reusable and reliable. What we really want is a few set of well-maintained and authoritative data created closer to the source systems, maintained by the right team who actually own the definitions of it, as well as ensuring that these pipelines or these data products that is being released are reliable. So that's the goal that we really want to get to. So to get to that, we kind of envision moving towards what we call a signals marketplace, where producers can basically publish the signals into this marketplace where someone or consumers from another organization within Grab could basically pick it up and consume. So this is what we call signals marketplace, and in order to kind of signpost that this signals marketplace, people can go out and say, hey, I'm just going to take the data that I want. That construct, we want data producers and data consumers to know what it is. We call this data certified tables or certified data sets. So data certification is kind of one way we want to create this signpost for both consumers and producers alike. And there are few attributes or aspects to data certification. One being data ownership, the other will be data contract. The last part being ensuring that this data becomes more discoverable, which is one problem that I spoke about later. And governing data contract is this construct of DPI process, which I also touch on shortly. So I'll deep dive into each of these constructs, which are important to ensure that data certification actually gets off. So the first being a mental model of data ownership. So what does it take for one to actually own data in Grab. So having the same language and mental model around the roles and responsibility of being a data owner was something that was very important for us to get through. In fact, if there was one thing that is critical to operationalize for this to succeed, it is the ownership and R&R mental model that everyone needs to have. So when folks say, hey, this is you need to do this as a TDO since you certified this, a TDO meaning technical data owner, there should not be kind of questioning, hey, why should I do this? Because this kind of questioning makes things very, reduces trust again and increases the communication barrier between folks and different agencies or organizations within Grab. So technical data owner is responsible to ensure that upkeep, reliability, SLAs, and documentation of data is there. Business data owner is responsible to ensure that the semantics, definition of the data is there. So if technical data owner doesn't know whether this column should be defined in a certain way, they could always ask the business data owner. So moving on to the next aspects of it, this thing was one that we were trying to operationalize, which is data contracts. It allows a way for data producers to actually say, hey, this is what we are promising for the product that we are giving. These are the SLAs of it. There's many elements of data contract that could be possible today. These are the few things that we mandate must be available as part of the data contract. First thing is what's the minimum set of columns and its types that consumers can expect. So this, it will be the schema check or schema expectations for consumers. The other one is what time would this data be available, or how old would it be at most? Would it be a weekly pipeline, or would it be available every day at 10 a.m.? So these are the expectations that could be set, and consumers can basically base out of it and build their pipelines accordingly. If they actually want to reduce improve the freshness or like make it earlier, the negotiation could be between the producers and consumer. So retention policy, how long will the data be stored? Would it be infinite? Which is basically if you don't mention it, or you can mention that, hey, it will be like, it will be 2 years, or it will be like 1 year. Basically, you can promise a certain retention period. So there won't be any surprises when data is gone. The last part, which is DPI criticality, it basically means if these things are not met, how long would it take, or how critical is this data where you have X amount of time, be it 5 days or 1 day to actually fix the underlying problem. Setting a criticality around the data means allows your consumer to know, hey, this is an important data set. You can also expect this kind of SLA that will be governed around it. So all these are kind of cheap promises, right? If like I just say these are the kind of expectations that you could have, but nothing is being checked against. So we also introduced data quality monitors to ensure that there's proactive checks against the expectations that were set. So we have an internal platform called Genchi. You can expect functionalities similar to what's available in like open source on Great Expectations, Call, and the likes in terms of setting the expectations per table or asset that's being governed. So producers can basically go to our platform and define it on our UI on, hey, this is the ABCD construct of it, and there's proactive data quality monitoring based on the expectations that's set. Now suppose the data quality monitors breaches, there will be timely alerting that will be sent off based on this tool. Of course, users can also use and extend these tools to set and create alerts that's beyond what's available in a data contract. So data contract could be an opt-in amount or subset of what they are testing on the data quality monitor platform. Think of it as a kind of complementary platform that we're introducing. So I think the last part is what happens if the promises actually gets breached, or the expectations that's being set. So I think I alluded to it before. We have a construct of data production incidents as part of a broader incident framework within the organization. So a breach data contract will trigger a DPI. This is what the enforcement point is that ensures that, hey, everyone follows this. And if the DPI is not being addressed, accordingly by the set SLA based on its criticality, there will be broader reporting to ensure that there's organizational purview over this set of things, so that it basically reinforces the fact that data is important, especially if you certify your data, you should be taking care of it. Now, going to the last part, which is, hey, now that I've certified my data, now that I have ensure that there's good data quality monitors. How do I actually improve the problem in terms of data discoverability? We built a grab-wide data catalog. It's built atop Data Hub, so it's an open source tool. You can take a look at it. So we call it Hubble. So we built, with all these certification aspects, we have infused that into our search algorithm to ensure that we penalize stuff that are non-certified. So out of these 200,000 tables, about 1% of odds is certified. So basically this helps us to cut through the noise and ensures that some of it is basically, and most of it that is required is certified, and that helps search algorithm a lot. So after doing all this, what do we see and observe? So we don't want to boil the ocean, so we really look at trying to drive highest queried assets for certification. So today, about 80% of queries are hitting certified assets. So users are basically only prioritizing those that needs to be certified. That's basically one lever that we help them prioritize and provide them the dashboard to do so. The other area that we also observe as part of this drive towards certification and better data governance is we realize that technical data owners are kind of more proactive in deprecating data that they don't need. So this helps, number one, in terms of cost savings. The other one is also helps in terms of our search algorithm and discoverability of data. I think the last part, which is also interesting in a point of kind of observing this change happen autonomously, is that certified data is actually more reliable by default. We realize that the depth to kind of as assessment of the sprawl of data pipelines, they are -2, like 2 less or from what is used compared to uncertified data. So by default, that actually means that they should naturally be more reliable if you consider a certain uptime perspective, that some pipelines will basically break if they are on a longer pipeline. So certified assets are also more reliable from that aspect. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Rong. So now we would have the next part of our evening's program. This will be a presentation by Danny and Anshu from the data team at GovTech. So first up is Danny. Thank you, Danny.
Hi, good evening, everyone. So I'm here joined with my colleague, Anshu, a very talented colleague. And today we're going to be talking to you about what we built at the practice side to help enable better guidance for data classifications through an AI-assisted educational tool. The agenda for our sharing is quick. We're going to talk about the challenge that we're trying to address, followed by a deep dive. This is probably the most exciting part on the solution and how we designed it, how we built it. And lastly, of course, the impact that we felt with the users that we engaged, the pilot users. All right, so we know that Singapore, we're trying to achieve that smart nation vision. And we want to do this by opening the borders to all data, open the floodgates. Let's make sure we can share data from public to private sectors. We want to share data between all the government agencies. And when we do that, we need to also make sure that we apply the proper protections on the data itself. So the very first step to secure data sharing is data classification. How can you classify data? In principle, we have a lot of high-level policies to aid in assessments to tell whether data, what's the sensitivity level, what's the security level that should be done, that should be applied on it, and the potential harm that could come about if this data was stolen or was shared out to the public, right? And we also give very high-level guidance on what kind of anonymization techniques you can apply to your data to better protect it. But this comes in from a very high level, from the guidance level. And when the agencies have to apply this suddenly becomes quite a big issue because now they have to review everything with a specific context lens, the use case that they are using the data for. And these public officers, they may not be so data literate. They usually have to do things, check in with probably data governance officers to identify whether there is potential risk in their data sets. And also, while they're applying all these protections on the data, how can they then preserve the utility of the data that is still useful for whatever use case they have? And so some of the gaps that we identify is that there's no practical tooling right now for privacy-related and quality-related identification. And there's also a need for something to give a very straightforward data and policy-grounded guidance. And of course, whenever they make any kind of decisions, we want to have an audit trail to basically explain their rationale. Maybe I give you a bit of a double click into the data sharing dilemmas that public officers face. This was something that we researched on. And one of the few things is that when you want to share data out, the different agencies will probably take a more conservative approach to classify the data. So they might then again apply a bit too much protection mechanisms in place. And what this does is that it reduces the utility of it. And basically, when you request for data, you can have that problem of that the data doesn't really fit your needs when you get it. And you have this whole roundabout ding-dong process of just trying to get data, which reduces and slows down the whole process of things. So what we identified that what can possibly stall data sharing is first and foremost, maybe just even classifying the data correctly could be an issue. And translating all those policy guidance that I mentioned earlier into something that is actionable. And for the different public officers, what kind of tools and guidance can they actually depend on? So there's quite a number of problems that agencies usually face when you want to share out the data. So just a couple of months ago, there was this hackathon that GovTech hosted, and our team brainstormed a bit, and we built this tool called the Data Sharing Assist. And it is, in principle, a productivity tool meant to provide contextual guidance to public officers. The whole idea here is that we also designed this tool with the intention to co-design it with the different government agencies, the actual users of it, plus the policymakers who came up with the guidance of how you should classify your data and whatnot. The tool is basically an embedded AI assistant, and it's been fed in with information about how they should handle data and all the policies underlying it. And it also helps to access data profiling and privacy risk heuristics. But for tonight, we're going to focus mainly on data classification. So I think I will hand over this presentation over to my colleague, Anshu, very talented, and she will take you through about the solution design choices.
Thank you, Danny. You are also very talented. We all know that. So I will be diving into our tool that is Data Sharing Assist. And so particularly, we will be talking about why do we even need an LLM assistant for data classification and the design choices for this assistant and how did we go about evaluating this assistant. Something that most of the people really skip, but we want to be courageous about that. All right, let me just help you visualize our tool. It's a very simple user journey, which starts with user uploading their data sets, metadata, and their internal policies. And then we also have this assessment section, which quickly surfaces the privacy risk scores and some data quality checks. But as Danny mentioned, today our focus is on this assistant, which help answering questions related to data classification. And before we dive into why do we need an LLM assistant, we first need to understand what does this concept of data classification even means. So essentially, we are assessing the sensitivity of a data set, meaning the potential harm it can have on an individual or an entity. So to assess that harm, you have to look into your data, check what are the identifying information, and also the sensitive information. And it's not that easy, because there's a whole lot of things that you have to look at the granular level, right? It can be whether the column is having anonymized value or simply raw values, whether the information is public or it is not public, the identifiers are internal or the external, and then how bad are the values? Consider a column like disease. Does it simply consist of common problems like fever, cough, or cold? Or it actually consists of some really damaging values, such as HIV and AIDS, which can increase the sensitivity level of the data set, right? And then, of course, the cultural norm and agency-specific context also matters significantly. And as you can understand from all this, simple rule-based methodologies or simple machine learning algorithms might not be able to capture all the nuances that exist for data classification, right? And we are already seeing industries, even I know that Grab is doing this, they are using large language model for data classification. Why? Because large language models, using their worldly knowledge, they can synthesize and contextualize the information present in the data and can give more accurate data classification. But why an assistant? Because we want to keep this interaction between the AI and the users. We want users to be in control. We don't want LLM saying to the user, hey, this is your data classification. But instead, we want the users to look at the reasoning, check the assumptions, correct those assumptions if required. And that can help in making the data classification more accurate, educated, and informed. I know what you're looking in the picture. The hand is opposite, right? It's a AI-generated image, it's okay. But you got the sentiment from the image, right? We want to augment the officer's knowledge for data classification. All right, let's dive into the design considerations for the assistant. So we have started off with simple methodologies, that is doing meticulous prompt engineering enriched with data assessment signals. So what I mean by data assessment signals is that we pass the sample of the data set and some privacy risk scores, such as the rare values that exist in the data in simple English format to the prompt. So they basically signal the riskiness of the data through the privacy risk scores. And then the data classification policies through the RAG, basically retrieval augmented generation. So let me give you an example in here and help you understand how do we try to make the responses more accessible and usable for the end users through this structured answers and using policy language as required by our policymakers. So in this case, user is asking this question, guide me on the classification of the uploaded data set. So this is the standard question you will see throughout the presentation. But in this case, there is some CPF wage contribution data set that has been uploaded. And you can see that in the response, it quickly surfaces the recommendation for the classification. And it also provides summary of the justification as it is instructed in the prompt. So let's look at the response for the justification. It is doing this combination risk analysis. What does that mean? It means that it is looking holistically at the data and trying to understand how putting the columns together, the riskiness is coming from. So let me read this out for you. It states that the data contains a combination of direct identifiers. In this case, it consists of some UIN column and financial information. This is some wages and contributions that creates a moderate re-identification risk. And the linkage of UIN with detailed financial data could potentially lead to unauthorized disclosure of an individual's financial status. So let me simplify this for you. What it is doing is it is synthesizing all these identifying and sensitive pieces of information together and trying to reason about the riskiness, contextualize in the context of the data set that has been uploaded. So let me just continue this one. Further, it says that while the financial information is banded, which reduces some risk, the presence of exact amount in some columns maintains a level of sensitivity. Basically, it is looking at the values, trying to make a sense of whether they are anonymized or they are raw. And that is required. And after the risk analysis, it is associating with the harm it can cause to an individual if there is some unauthorized disclosure. So rather than giving very generic harm-related information, it is actually contextualizing in the context of the data set. I can say that it says that there is a potential of financial profiling or social engineering attack. All right, let me give you another example in here. This is some offense data set. It is recommending a higher sensitivity level. Let's try to understand why it is of higher sensitivity level. It is stating that there is some column called type of offense committed, which contains information about serious crimes, including drug offenses, which can cause some serious and sustained emotional injury or social stigma to the individuals. Interestingly, it is actually seeing how damaging is the offense. It is some drug offenses. It's not like robbery or somebody slapped someone on the road, right? It's a serious offense, that is drug offenses that has been committed, which is causing this sensitivity level to increase. And those who have been looking at the responses very keenly, you must have also noticed that we have these inline cited policies. So this was a requirement from our users who wanted to know which particular policy clause are you referring to that helped in building trust in the bot. And I also see this in a way to educate agencies or public officers because they usually do not read the policies. And this is the time for them to start looking at it in a more nice manner. Okay, next is accountability and traceability. For that, we surface the chain of thought. Basically, in the chatbot itself, you can expand and check the entire reasoning process that went into coming up with the recommended classification and the justification. And how is this useful? Because some of the public officers have to report to their bosses, how come you're coming up with this classification? So this detailed understanding can be meaningful to them, and also to check whether this reasoning actually makes sense or not. So if I look at the reasoning, it is examining the column content, specifically the values, applying the policies, considering the overall data set sensitivity, and also evaluating the potential harm and so on. We also surface column level classification because for users, they want to know which particular column is causing the rise in sensitivity level such that they can take appropriate measure, such as anonymizing that column, dropping that column, or some storage-related decisions. Okay, and lastly, this is very important, transparency and verification. We basically surface the assumptions about the data and the context, which impact the data classification. And this was a very important advice that was being provided by the policymakers who wanted us to give this agency to the public officers to verify and clarify the assumptions that the bot is making so that they can take the decisions accordingly. So continuing with our offense dataset example, let's look at some of the assumptions it is making. So I can see that it is assuming this column called UIN, it contains some actual NRIC and FIN number, and they're not anonymized, which can impact the classification-related decision. Oops, sorry. And then I can also see at the bottom, it is assuming that the data is not publicly available or approved for release. Let's try to correct this assumption. Maybe this data is decade old and it is indeed publicly available. And this is what the user gives the assistant as the feedback, which takes that as the input and refine its justifications and recommendation for data classification. As you can see now, the sensitivity has been lowered from sensitive high to something lower, that is sensitive normal. And it also asks the user to verify the public release approval. So like a double check. All right, so far, putting it all together, we have been trying to design this assistant to reduce the hallucination and encourage insights generation by showing the structured output plus policy languages to make it more accessible and usable for the users, attributions and trust through this inline-sided policies, and then surfacing assumptions for transparency and verification, and then finally, accountability and traceability by surfacing the entire reasoning process. That is a chain of thought. All right, moving on to evaluation. How did we evaluate it? So our classification accuracy is around 86% currently. But the thing is that it has been tested on 30 agencies' synthetic data sets. We had the ground truth for it. At this point, I would like you guys to answer me a question. why do you think it is not 100%? Where is this 14% missing? What is this 14% failure? Where is this 14% failure coming from? Anyone would like to make a guess? Huh? Discrepancies? Would you like to talk more about it? What discrepancies? Interesting. Anyone else? Human inconsistencies. Would you like to talk more about it? Like what? Uh-huh. Uh-huh. That's a very good point. That's true. So basically, he's saying like even humans have these inconsistencies, right? They might actually we did see this thing that when we were asking some of the users help us classify this data, there was so much inconsistencies. So those things will persist, but yes, it is aligned with what I want to say that as I mentioned in the beginning, right, there are certain assumptions the bot might make, which might require human judgments, like what information is public, what is considered as internal, external policies, and agency-specific context. All these things will matter. And generally, so basically, if you clarify these assumptions, it can boost your classification accuracy. And we have also seen that usually there's this assistant, it goes conservative, meaning it assumes that the information is not public, and that is why it basically chooses the higher sensitivity level. Okay, and we also evaluated the consistency of the assistant. So for the uploaded data set, what is the consistency with respect to the classification, reasoning, assumptions, and citations? And for that, we use LLM as a judge. So those who don't know what is LLM as a judge is, simply put, it's an automated and scalable way to evaluate your chatbot responses. Generally, we use more capable model as LLM as a judge, and we provide the evaluation criteria through prompt engineering. So in this case, of course, it is not visible much, the entire evaluation criteria that we have prompted the LLM judge to use for consistency checks. So how did we go about doing this consistency check? So for an uploaded data set and the same standard query, that is guidance on data classification, we ask the LLM judge, so we generate 2 responses for the same query on the same data set, and ask the LLM judge to evaluate the 2 responses across those consistency dimensions that I mentioned, right? Reasoning, assumptions, citations, how consistent they are across for the 2 responses. And we generally saw there was a consistency in all these dimensions, but for those 14% failure that I mentioned, there was, of course, inconsistency with respect to the classification, and you can expect the reasoning and assumption citations also suffered. All right, so before I close off this segment and hand over to Danny, I just wanted to bring out some interesting points. So we have been designing this assistant to make it future extensible, meaning, so we support metadata as well in cases where there can be challenges in uploading the real sensitive data set itself. We also support internal policy, uploading of the internal policies in case agencies might have their own rules and internal policies, and they might want to apply those on top of the foundational policies that the chatbot is already aware of. And if you look at a tool, in a way, it helps in generating insights from the data set. It helps you understand your data set. And I think it is already established fact that the importance of having human and AI collaboration whenever you're developing an AI tool. But I recently watched this particular talk by Enrich Karpathy, and I hope so I'm pronouncing his name correct. But yes, he mentioned how can we make this human AI collaboration faster? That's the goal. And if you look at a tool, we just ask you to upload your data, ask the query, and you will get the first cut recommendation on classification and the justification. And so basically, we are not bombarding the end user with so many questions related to policies. Because if I'm the end user, if you're throwing so many questions at me, like what is the sensitivity of your data set, how harmful it is, I'm like, you have the worldly knowledge, you're the PhD scholar, you're called as, why are you throwing so many questions at me? Okay, so with that, I'll just hand over to Danny.
Thanks, Anshu. So I'm just going to go through that after sharing about the product and how it was designed. I think one of the major things we want to know about what was the impact. And one of the things that we found throughout our whole prototype phase was that the greatest impact was that agencies with this sort of profile, where they handle very large amounts of sensitive data, and they're collecting data and sharing data with multiple non-government entities. These usually would be the perfect agency profile that found this tool very useful. So these are what some of the users are saying. I mean, one thing was that throughout the whole design process, like Anshu shared, we did a lot of back and forth iterations into sharpening the way how the product would work. And one thing you could see is that it helps to act as a confidence builder. So even when the agencies aren't very sure about how to classify the data, or maybe they're doing a double take, they use this tool as a way to also check whether their rationale or their reasoning is sound. And the other part, unexpectedly, was that a lot of the data governance teams found it as a good way to also help the data owners themselves self-help, right? So that this chatbot can answer the queries themselves. And I think lastly, of course, is like what we mentioned, one of the features that we really wanted to provide was that audit trail on the rationale of how someone would come to a conclusion of the data classification. As you saw in the snapshots, the screenshots that Anshu shared, when the bot provides all those additional information on the rationale, it really does help to at least communicate the rationale to your bosses for public officers. So maybe just to summarize our presentation, the key takeaways here is that when we're building this trustworthy assistant tool called DSA, it involves quite a few parts, right? We look at people, we try to make sure that we always co-design this with the policymakers. We try to co-design this with the on-the-ground users of this tool, the data governance officers that would also want to use the tool as well. We understand the processes at each agency, how do they actually share out their data, and we focus a lot on education. Education in the form that the tool itself isn't something that is authoritative. It's meant to be giving you that self-confidence on understanding your thought process, or understanding the way how you should address classification in itself. And lastly, of course, technology. So technology-wise, that's quite important, where you want to make sure that you're using the AI, LLMs responsibly. And we also want to make sure that we keep the human in the loop. So there are some aspects of when we provide the recommendations, we also ask for feedback from the tool itself, so we can also better improve our processes. And of course, privacy and security perspectives. And the tool that we're trying to build must also provide very consistent and evidence-based information when giving that rationale. So I think with that, I'd like to close off our sharing. And I hope you managed to find something interesting about how we built our data sharing assist tool in the practice. Thank you.
Thank you so much again, Danny and Anshu, for the great sharing. So before we go into the combined Q&A, we have another great presentation from Elizabeth. So once you're ready, the stage is yours. Thank you.
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us here tonight. I am Elizabeth, a data engineer from the Cloak team. Tonight, we are going to tackle a very important question, and that is how we can share and use data effectively while keeping it secure. So in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you how Cloak can solve this long-standing tension between privacy protection and innovation by making data anonymization so simple that anyone can use it. Okay, so let's start off with where it begins. Cloak was built after notable data leaks that happened in 2018. This shook public trust And even in the recent 2 to 3 years, there have been more and more data leaks happening in the public sector. And these are mainly attributed to more data sharing between agencies as we continue our efforts at digital transformation. All these incidents uncovered this inherent tension, which is the risk-utility dilemma. Okay, so this risk-utility dilemma, how it comes about is when we want to utilize data, we want to leverage it for greater insights and innovation, but at the same time, we also fear dealing with privacy and regulations. On the extreme end of the curve, what happens is that privacy concerns cause paralysis. When we are unsure if our safeguards that we implement are enough, we fall back to what we feel is the safest, which is to do nothing, right? But then what happens is this. Smart Nation initiatives are being stopped. External collaborations with strategic partners are blocked. And also when you do your policy analysis, you can't get a full picture using only siloed data sets within your agencies, correct? Right, so what we aim to do at GovTech is to try to push this trade-off curve up with the help of privacy-enhancing technologies, right? So that without privacy-enhancing technologies, right, the cost is that you have the best data governance, but the least data empowerment. But we want to help you get the best of both worlds, which is to have both high utility as well as high privacy. Okay. So a bit of introduction into privacy-enhancing technologies. Privacy-enhancing technologies are basically the tools, the techniques, practices that can help to protect privacy, but at the same time enable the analysis and collaboration on sensitive information. With privacy-enhancing technologies, this becomes possible. First, at the core, your data is protected. So this reduces the impact of data leakages. Second, your data is still usable. What this means is that you can still use your data while privacy is being preserved. So this unlocks new use cases that are previously blocked by regulatory concerns. Next, your data is also de-risked. It has a lower risk, so this enables shared exploitation efforts. And last of all, which is the most important one, trust is being maintained. And this trust comes from knowing that privacy concerns are effectively mitigated. Okay, so since Cloak is an anonymization toolkit, I want to elaborate more about what anonymization really is. Anonymization simply replaces or modifies the personally identifiable information, and the result is that you can't really identify a single individual in the anonymized data set. So in other words, it helps to, the result is to de-identify the individuals. Examples of anonymization techniques would be encryption, masking, generalization, and in the context of free text anonymization, it swaps out the detected PII with the anonymized value, or simply swap it out with a placeholder. Okay, so at Cloak, we operationalize these techniques at scale for the whole of government to use, but then we don't just provide the tools simply. We help you to do it right. The two core features of Cloak are tabular data anonymization and free text data anonymization. But apart from anonymization, right, what we do is we address the policy compliance pain point so that you can be confident that your data meets privacy standards for your intended use case. And Cloak is also available for anyone in the whole of government to use, as well as people from non-government organizations who are in collaboration with government agencies on data projects. Cloak is also accessible through two modalities. The first one is the web UI, mainly for non-experts, for example, the business owners and so on, but who still need to touch data. The second one is API, and it's mainly used for system integrations so that they can anonymize their data at scale. Okay, so for the next section, I'll be diving into Cloak's capabilities, starting off with structured data. At Cloak, we offer a wide range of anonymization techniques that you can customize as well. And you can see there's a lot on the left-hand side over there. Okay, but what I want to draw your attention to is the diagram on the right-hand side over there. So that one is an anonymization framework that we put into practice. And this framework is focused on mitigating re-identification risk. The first step of this workflow is to identify the anonymization techniques on the data set depending on the sensitivity levels of the columns. Yeah, so what this means is that, for example, NRIC, the sensitivity level of that is the direct identifier. And since it's a direct identifier, we want to apply more stringent anonymization techniques such as hashing on it. For other indirect identifiers such as zip code, perhaps we'll only mask the last few characters of it. At the next step, we will test if it if it is sufficient so that it does not re-identify people. So this testing of re-identification risk is using this metric known as the K-anonymity. And if it fails this test, you can go back to the previous step to apply heavier anonymization, or we can also automatically apply generalization or suppression techniques on the affected columns. The threshold of this re-identification risk that you accept is adjustable, meaning that depending on the environment where you share your data in, whether it is more uncontrolled or whether it's more controlled. We have WOG mode A and mode B, if you can see over there on the slides. So with this, we describe an environment where the agencies may share their data in. WOG mode A is mainly for public sharing, so the data sharing is really uncontrolled. WOG mode B is when the agencies share their data in a more controlled environment, for example, within their agencies, so lighter anonymization techniques may be applied. Okay, so after they choose all these different environments, we will suggest different anonymization techniques to fit their intended use cases. Okay, but moving on from single dataset anonymization, collaboration often requires coordination. And one of the key issues that agencies face is that they need to link multiple data sets together after they are being anonymized, right? But if the columns are anonymized using different anonymization parameters, for example, using a different hashing sort or using a different encryption key IV pair, what happens is that the anonymized value would be inconsistent. And as a result, the agencies would not be able to link these data sets together. So what Cloak does is that we also take on the role as a trusted third party to help to manage the sharing of this anonymization secrets. And by doing so, we allow the secure distribution of these secrets and enable the agencies to have a clear oversight on their active partnerships. Moving on from structured data, we have our unstructured free text data. And this free text data could come in many forms. For example, they could be your case notes from your social workers. They could be citizen feedback forms. They could also be incident reports, medical case reports, and a lot more. All of these are very valuable for analysis and even AI training, especially with the recent surge in Gen AI capabilities. To use these technologies safely and responsibly, free text anonymization is the first line of defense. And what we do at Cloak, our approach leverages name entity recognition to identify the PIIs in the text. Once the PIIs have been detected, we will transform it with the anonymized value or replace it with a placeholder. Okay, so if your eyes are a bit sharper, you may notice that the NRIC beside the person is not anonymized. And the reason, it's not a mistake, by the way, it is because this NRIC, it failed a checksum validation, meaning that it is a fake NRIC. Okay, so this is a setting that is that you could optionally enable or disable, right? This is not a mistake. Okay. Okay. But you know, when we talk about missing out detected entities in the free text anonymization, there are a lot of challenges, and one of them, for example, could be that the text itself may not follow typical linguistic patterns, making it challenging for your standard NLP models to detect the PIIs. Then the second issue that we face is that a lot of times, sensitive information is not just limited to your typical ones, like your names, your addresses, location, the standard ones lah. What happens most of the time is that there are a lot other domain-specific entities, such as medical diagnosis in the healthcare sector. And for example, in the trade sector, we may have company names and individual work for. And in the finance sector, there are income details. All of these are sensitive information, but a lot of standard NLP models are not pre-trained to detect all of these entities. Okay. So you may be wondering, does Cloak have a solution? Yes, we do. Okay. So I would like to introduce this feature that was developed in collaboration with the data practice team. This is LLM-enabled custom entity detection for domain-specific needs. So what this does is really to simplify this ability to detect any PIIs that you define. And we make it so simple. There are only 2 steps. First one, you give a description of what the PII is. For example, for medical disease, what it is like an illness, it is a medical condition affecting an individual, etc. And then step 2, you give 3 to 5 examples where this PII occurs in the text. Yeah. And with this, you click transform, and voila, you have the custom entities detected, and you can proceed on with what you want to do. Okay, so this LLM-enabled custom entity may seem like the magic of LLMs, but what I want to highlight is that behind the scenes are also the innovative minds of our fellow peers from the data practice who ensured, number 1, that the LLM's responses follows a structured format, and number 2, that the structured data from the LLM's responses, they are optimized for both cost and speed. Okay, so the LLM-enabled custom entities are very cool, but what I want to show here is how it is actually really effective through our benchmarks. We benchmark our solution against other state-of-the-art NER models in the market, such as Piranha, and then we found that Cloak performs better across all the PII entities. So the numbers that you see on the screens, they are the recall metric, and what recall means is that Cloak was able to detect more entities that are otherwise missed out by the other NER models. Yeah. So the numbers look good, but let's look at the real impact. Okay, so as of now, Cloak has been used across more than 120 agencies, and we have anonymized millions of documents, and monthly we have also anonymized millions of PIIs, right? So what this means is that agencies are then able to use all of this anonymized data effectively for their innovation, for sharing, etc. For example, Gen AI projects are being unlocked. Within GovTech, Cloak is also integrated with other internal products. Before they send the prompts to LMs, they use Cloak to anonymize the text in real time. At PSD, Cloak has been used to sanitize sensitive high MP appeal letters before they are used to fine-tune LLMs, and this has been used so that they can derive more insights. At MOH, Cloak has been used to anonymize clinical notes so that these clinical notes can be shared with external researchers who have the subject matter expertise to do the analysis. And at MSF Data Lake, Cloak's secrets sharing function has enabled them to merge multiple data sets after they have been anonymized. Okay, so let's see a quick video demo of Cloak. The first one is the tabular data anonymization. Here you choose the sensitivity levels of each column, and over here you apply the different anonymization techniques. This is a hashing function, and you can choose a shared hashing source. And over here we do the re-identification test again. You download the anonymized data set, and done. Okay, and then for free text anonymization, we support free text or file uploads. Then we'll give you a preview of what you can expect. And you can define your own custom entities. They could be regex, or the LLM-enabled one, which is where we give a definition and a few examples. In this case, we are trying to detect the diseases, if I didn't see it. Okay, yes, we are detecting for diseases, and yes, we are able to see that the text has been anonymized. Over here, this is the secrets sharing function. Secret at Cloak means the encryption key IB pair. Yeah, and over here, we have the page where you can see all the API keys if you are using Cloak's API. And okay. We have seen Cloak's capabilities at tabular and free text anonymization, but we are not stopping here. We are still continuing our efforts at anonymization, as well as other privacy-enhancing technologies. The future includes context-aware anonymization, which improves data utility by replacing less obvious sensitive information with synthetic substitutes. We also are working on image anonymization, which will be especially useful in use cases such as medical imaging. Okay, so in the entire ecosystem of privacy-enhancing technologies, anonymization is just one part of it. It is the simplest one in concept, actually, but it is very small but effective, right? So now I want to introduce the other privacy-enhancing technologies that the data practice team has been working on. These are in development, and we are actively looking for problem statements so that we can further improve as well as ensure that our solution is better fitted for public sector's use cases. Okay? So in the next few slides, I'll talk about the privacy-enhancing technologies in the privacy landscape. We have broadly 3 categories. The first one is data transformation. This is where anonymization falls under, right? And data transformation, what it does is that the data itself is being modified, being disguised. The second one, on software computation, what this does is that this allows multiple parties to analyze jointly on the data, but with the condition that no one is actually being able to see each other's raw data. And the last one, on operating environment, what this does is that it kind of creates a secure space with trusted computation so that analysis on the data set can be run safely. Yeah. Okay, a bit more details. The first one is synthetic data generation. This is useful when you need fake data, but also preserve the data distribution as well as the relationships between the columns. This has actually been productionized already with a product called Mirage. So if you're interested, you can just go Google and search Mirage. Yes, okay, I'm also part of the team. So if you're interested, you can reach out to us. Okay, the second one is on differential privacy. Differential privacy is when you need to release aggregated statistics with a guaranteed mathematical proof that it is private. And then for homographic encryption, this is when you do direct computations on encrypted text. Okay, for the next category on software computation, we have secure multi-compute, which is basically letting multiple parties come and jointly run a computational function on the inputs. And federated learning, this one is a bit more interesting. This is where we allow multiple parties to train a central AI or ML model. And what happens is that all these data sets, they are decentralized, meaning that all of these data, they are not centralized together to train a model, but instead each one separately trains the model and updates the model weights itself. And lastly, we have the trusted execution environment, which is, as the name suggests, a single trusted environment within a secure area of main processor. Yeah. And so I have covered quite a lot, from anonymization in Cloak to the wider landscape of privacy-enhancing technologies. Okay, so this landscape of privacy-enhancing technologies is rich and it's growing. Okay, but what matters most is that these are not just technological tools, they are enablers for better government, for better services, and better life for all of us. Right? So my challenge to you is to go back and take your data from being safe and stagnant to safe and smart. Okay? Yeah, thank you.
Okay, so thank you so much again, Elizabeth, for sharing. I'm sure all of you have a lot of questions for our three speakers. But before we do that, may we get your help to do a quick poll? This would help us really a lot in planning and curating the future sessions for you guys that are focused on data. So for everyone who is scanning, thank you very much. And also, please come to us later after the session. Our folks will be here to give you a very special swag that we've busted out just for today because it's the opening special, the first stack meetup data. So please do this poll, and in a few seconds time, we will open the floor to questions and also invite. Thank you. Our speakers up again later. Thank you. Okay, I think most of you guys are done. Thank you so much for the help. And now we would like to open the Q&A segment for tonight. So Chun, Rong, Anush, Danny, and Elizabeth, please. Thank you. So while our speakers get on stage, please feel free to ask any questions that you might have. Very simple, yep, like the gentleman over there, if you raise your hand, our team will come over with the mics. Yep.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, this is David from Temasek Poly. Yeah, I have two questions. The first one is the AI tool for the data classifications. So does that tool now is made available to the WG users or other agencies?
Right. So right now the tool is a prototype. We're still trying to get that confidence where we can do the classifications in a more confident manner. So for our incubation stage, what we actually do as a benchmark is that we take the core data sets and try to classify them. So right now we're about 80% accuracy, but we're trying to get that higher so that it's something that we can work towards to really sit out as a tool for WOG users.
Yeah, I think the pinpoint you are trying to solve is a real pinpoint. Yeah, look forward to that.
Yeah, precisely. That's why we wanted to build this at a hackathon, and the team came up with it. Yeah.
Sure. The second question is for the clock. Must like to be accessible only via GSIB?
No, Cloak is also available through the internet. Yeah, so you can just.
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
Yeah, I cannot access it anymore.
If you open up your phone, I'm pretty sure you can go to www.cloak.gov.sg and you can see. No?
Cannot log in.
Okay, login. For logins, we only accept WOG80, which is login mechanisms which all public officers would have. But for non-public officers, you have to sign up with TechPass.
Yeah, cannot log in.
Could it be open to public officer in the education institute? Because our email is at edu.sg.
It's at edu.sg, not.
So
I don't
may it
think.
be whitelisted?
Edu. I think only edu.gov.sg would be whitelisted.
I know
but-
WG is .gov.sg, but for polytechnics officers, our is edu.sg.
Yes. If I am right, you can try to sign up through TechPass. I'm sure that it is whitelisted under the TechPass domain. It's not? Okay.
I'll email you my error message.
Yes, sure. Yeah. No, if you have any issues, you can still feel free to contact our help desk and we will reply lah. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Just on the question, my question is about whether the two tools, Cloak and AI ML tools, whether you have planned to deploy to GCC Plus so that whatever people dealing with confidential data can use it. These are two very good tools.
Right now, not for GCC Plus. Yeah.
No plan or?
Not yet. Not in the pipeline, I think.
I have a follow-up question for you. Did you see some value in the tool for your own use case? Just want to know.
Basically, I'm from DOS. DOS, fortunately, we play with confidential data. So if your tool is in GCC2, basically, it's not so easy. You can send your data over there. That's why if you can deploy to GCC Plus, that would be great.
Because right now the prototype is using LLM, so we have to clear that first. That's why.
Whether you can separate out training of your model and deployment of the models. I'm not sure whether possible.
I suppose we can explore that. Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks.
You do data classification.
Actually, more on data confidentiality. Just now you talk about sensitivity. This I think also quite good in the data domains. Yeah.
So just want to seek your clarification for data clarification tools. So because we use the tools, right, we don't know whether data is confidential or not. So if we pass the information to this tool, it's safe to use the tool to do clarification. Because the data itself, we don't know whether it's confidential or not.
I think that's a good question. It's a chicken and egg thing, right?
Yeah,
because it's like you don't know your data, you send it out, and then it's telling you, hey, this is top secret. Oh no, you already brought it up. I think at this point in time, with regards to that, what we are thinking of is at least you try to bring synthetic data generation. You try to syntactically generate the data first based on the profile of your data, and we can probably do a classification on that. One other feature that I think Anshu, where you upload your metadata to describe your data profile and your data set, and then we can also still make some sort of assessment from there. Yeah.
Because probably even metadata might be having lower sensitivity as compared to the actual raw data. So that is one possibility. But yes, this is something that we want to actually work on, preventing users from doing any accidental higher sensitivity level data to be uploaded, which the system itself doesn't support. yeah, you have raised a very important questions that we are still juggling with to figure out.
Okay, yeah, thanks for the detailed sharing from everyone. So I'm just one question each from each of you. Okay, so for the first, I think on Grab side, sorry, there's some fact. Okay, yeah, for on Grab side, I'm thinking more on the data labeling and annotation. Like, I'm just quite curious when curating a golden sample to be fed into the large language model or maybe a internal model. Like, what was the thought process, behind like validating the golden samples? Yeah.
So I think this is what people would do in terms of like golden or eval set, right? So I think the eval set in terms of that, I just want to tie it back to a similar topic. So there's a different mental model in terms of the eval set on that. But from that construction, we also try to federate out in terms of who is the right owners of validating or creating and crafting that eval set. From the ownership standpoint, we want to federate out to the kind of tech family or organization who is maintaining that goal in terms of, hey, if we want to kind of train this model to ensure that depends on the outcome that you want. For example, from the perspective of, hey, is the data, is the agent answering the question correctly? That eval set should be crafted from the perspective of the team who wants their metric or their answer to be represented. So I hope that answers.
Yeah, so you're looking more from a higher level, like from a data governance internally, like at least at a standpoint.
Yeah. But if you want to go to the technicals, then I think there's different aspects to it, which is, yeah.
Okay, then curious for yourself, is more on the, when curating the language model, like what sort of rules are deterministic? Yeah, because I think a lot of the demonstration are probabilistic in nature.
You talk about the deterministic signals that I mentioned about. So we use some algorithms to compute the privacy scores. Simply speaking, like what is the percentage of the rare values and what are those rare values. So these kind of privacy metrics that we use, even the uniqueness factor, how unique are the values, they kind of signals the sensitivity or the riskiness that exists in your structured data. So these are the deterministic signals I'm talking about.
More like in terms of when you mentioned about the data classification for between the 30 agencies. So like, how do you curate that sample yet again? Like, how do you define what exactly is classified, like the correct classification?
Oh, I see. So you're asking how do we determine the ground truth? Is that the question? Oh yeah. So for that, we had the metadata for some of the agencies' data set along with the ground truth, like how they are classified. So we just use that metadata to generate the synthetic version of it. So I know it is still synthetic, but it was still able to retain those characteristics and good enough for the prototype to keep rolling and evaluate it. So that is how we were able to check the performance using the ground truth that was there.
Okay, and maybe lastly on the Cloak side, I think it's great for developers, but maybe for people who are not so data oriented, then how would they deal with understanding like the system as a whole? Like, is there an easier way for them to interface?
So from the web UI, right, it's a step-by-step guide, especially for the tabular data anonymization. So the first step, right, after they upload the data, we will guide them on choosing the kind of mode, like WOG mode A, the WOG mode B, the kind of environment. We specify the description depending on their use cases. So for example, if they know that this data, they intend it to share it, for example, to the public, and then they read the description of the WOG mode A, it fits their use cases, their intended use cases, right? So they click on WOG mode A, proceed to the next step, and then they can automatically apply all our recommended anonymization techniques. There's one button over there, apply all button. Then they can apply it, and all of the relevant columns will be anonymized accordingly based on the sensitivity levels. And the sensitivity levels are also automatically tagged based on the column name itself. Yeah. So it's a very easy workflow for the agencies. Does that answer your question? Okay, awesome. Thanks.
Hi, hello. I have a question on data contracts. So thank you so much for sharing the concept of data contracts. So I think my question is, how do you drive the adoption of data contracts within Grab? And are there any other capabilities other than just data observability and data quality?
Right. I think the simple question for the first one is you need some level of executive buy-in and top-down push to basically start off this flow, because it's always a chicken and egg problem where when you don't have an earlier pool of certified data that has data contract backed, it's very difficult for folks to basically ring fence the set of data that folks will find useful. So you basically want to kickstart that process. We think that's a lot faster. There could be other ways where you can do it organically, but that was the mode that we pushed. The other question that you have was around, is there any other value around data contracts besides data observability, right? I think there are the intangibles ones. The tangible one, of course, is the proactive monitoring of it. The intangible ones are the aspects of folks actually caring about the data a lot more and basically self-curating the set of data that they want to get published.
Okay, thank you so much.
I have one question to the Cloak team. Yeah. I just want. Maybe I just. I'm just wondering, because there's so many data right going using Cloak, right? I saw it's 1.2 million populace. So whether actually do you actually have this continuous setting of the model to continue fine tune to improve the accuracy or visions of the model?
No, we don't. So the model that we use behind the scenes are open source. The standard one is Spacey model, but then on top of the Spacey model, we do a lot of customizations, such as detecting if this word appears near other words, then the likelihood of this chunk of text would be a PII. So there's a lot of customization behind, but it's not really retraining the model itself.
Okay. I'm just thinking about, with so many data coming in, right? Whether it will be crucial, and train the data, train the model further. Because the data itself, right? Yeah, especially on you're talking about free text, right? It may change, or maybe the policy change or whatever, right? So in a way, right, the model will keep on get updated.
Understand, but also this means that we have to use agencies' data, which I believe that they may not be that comfortable with. So the policy to ensure that our platform is secure and can accommodate up to sense high data is that the retention is only 24 hours. So after we process it, we will remove it, we will purge the data from our system. We do not use it anymore. Yeah.
Hi. I think I'll just speak. So my name is Chen. I'm the government and policy officer. Thank you for very useful presentations. My question is for the second group. So for the classification, I noticed that it's very dealing with structured data sets. I wonder whether you have done any work on unstructured information. Like, for example, classification of policy papers. Should this paper be restricted or confidential cloud? And whether you can share any insights on the statement.
So we didn't do much for unstructured because, like I mentioned, we came from the hackathon team and we were in this incubation project where we only have a timeline like about 3-4 months like that. So with a very specific timeline, we just decided to focus down on structured data. But of course, like what you mentioned, definitely there's potential for dealings in unstructured.
Yeah, I would like to add on unstructured data requests. We are hearing a lot. And once this prototype is success, demonstrating its business impact, we might consider unstructured data as well. And if you saw the prototype overview, right, it is pretty much flexible and extensible in terms like it can support unstructured data in the future in a way. Okay. But yes, it in itself is a big problem, so we kept it for future roadmaps.
So this question is for Anshu. So you're using a large language model to do the data classification. So the question is the output deterministic? Well, deterministic.
Yeah, I think I presented a slide on that, demonstrating how consistent are the responses for the data classification. If I understood your question, then you're basically asking if I upload a data set, it should give me the same classification every time, right?
Well, it writes, I think there is a long write-up, right? Every time you upload something, there's a long write-up on...
Oh, I see, okay, yeah.
So I think that's
Yeah.
a lot longer than what most people will be able to write.
Yeah, so yeah, I had this slide on the question that you asked, basically checking how consistent it is with respect to some dimensions. That includes the classification itself and the assumptions it is making, the reasoning, and all those things. And we generally found, basically semantically speaking, it was consistent for those 86% of the cases. Yeah. So, but I would like
thought
to
that one was a comparison against some benchmarks.
It was just comparison, like, okay, you pose this question, you generate 2 responses, and we use LLM as a judge to see how similar are the 2 responses.
Oh, so both
Benchmarking
responses
against the 2
are
responses.
from that LLM. It's not against a human or something.
No, this, right now it was all about assessing how consistent are the responses if you are uploading a data set and they are nearly the same or not. It should not be like, it is giving the same classification and the justification are drastically different for the 2.
Okay, so it's
ground
first
truth,
run
yeah.
and the second run, and then you're comparing the differences.
Yes, and at the same time, we do look into human evaluator as well. We are working with policy makers because they are kind of our subject matter expert for data classification. We are working with them. They help us in eyeballing the responses, and they basically help us understand whether the reasoning makes sense or not, and how it should look like that. So that is also something we are continuously collaborating with the policymakers to eyeball the responses.
So have you benchmarked against the human classifications from a person, some subject matter experts?
Human classification. So as I mentioned, those you want to answer?
No, so like I shared just now, we benchmark against the core data sets. So first is we get the core data sets, we measure against like what's the classifications, whether what the LLM provided, does it match back. That's one aspect. The other aspect that Anshu was sharing also is that the consistency of the answers. You don't want to get a scenario where the LLM gives one person one answer and another person another answer. So we had a process flow to just do a LLM as a judge, where we wanted it to make sure that the answers given doesn't differ too much from each other. So there's 2 aspects of it. And then the last aspect is that this is where we got the subject matter expert to actually read through the LLM's responses, and that whole long line of justifications and the rationale. We actually sat down with the subject matter expert and she read through everything, and any things that she disagreed with, and that's when we went back to improve upon the model to give a better, sharper answer by giving it more context. Yeah. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, and of course you can expect differences. So I mentioned there were some failure cases as well, because you can expect for some of the cases, if you upload a data set, there were differences in the data classification. Sometimes it classified as low or sometimes it's high. That was because of the assumptions it was making. And in that case, the reasoning, everything also differed. So we did see the failure cases as well. At the same time, success cases where it was consistent. And that is expected, right? As I described, there are assumptions that model might be making.
Okay, yeah, thank you. So the next question is for Elizabeth. So so the question is, after you anonymize the data, is it still possible to do table joins?
Sorry, table joins?
Yes.
Depends on how you anonymize it. Yeah, so as mentioned before, if you want to join 2 tables, right, the linking column, it has to be anonymized using the same anonymization parameters. Okay. For example, the most common one, people will want to join using the NRIC column, right?
So you do some kind of hash?
Depends.
And the hash is always consistent?
Depends. For example, right, if you do a hashing, we'll add a hashing sort, right? The hashing sort is an anonymization parameter. If the sort is different, the output of the hash function with the sort will be different. Different sort, different outputs, right? Yeah, but if you use the same sort, then the output will be the same. It's the same for encryption, which is like the reversible anonymization technique. Hashing is irreversible, encryption is reversible. So with encryption, the parameters are the key IV pair. If you use different key IV pair, the encryption results will be different, and you would not be able to decrypt using different key and IV pair. But if you use the same key and IV pair, then the output will be the same. It is deterministic.
So there are two ways to do it. Either do a forward hash, or one-way hash, or do encryption.
Yes, depends on the use cases, because some agencies, they require the column to be decrypted later on. Then in that case, they would choose encryption. But in other cases, for example, if a more stringent anonymization is required because they are sharing it to the public, for example, or for example, it is a sensitive high column, then in this case, only hashing will be available. So hashing is irreversible.
Okay.
Depends on the use case.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
Hi, good evening. This is Jun Jie from Maritime and Port Authority. I do have a question for Cloak and one question for the classification team. So for Cloak, I do see the value behind it, and also it is quite a mature product. So my question is, would there be any policy guidance to either agencies or public officers that may mandate or encourage the use of the product?
For this question, I don't think I'm that well suited to answer this. I think my product manager would provide a better and clearer answer to that. So if you are interested, maybe you can reach out to us over email. Yeah, my product manager is not here today, yeah, unfortunately. Okay. Yeah, thank you.
No worries. Yeah, then one question for the classification team. That is, in your work with the 30 agencies, how do you deal with coded data? That means data that is not of natural language. Say, for example, in the case where drug offenses are sensitive, but it is coded as a DRG, then how does the model deal with it?
Yeah, I think when I was walking through the data classification definition, right, this is one of the, the assumptions the model might make around what does these codified values actually mean. If it has sufficient information to make get a right understanding of what those codes actually denote, then yeah, you can expect the classification will also be accurate. So the point I'm trying to make over here is that it depends on whether the bot is able to estimate from the given information what do those codes signify. So it can be incorrect as well.
All right, thank you very much.
Sorry to add on also, I think the way how we designed for our prototype was that we allowed the users to also add in additional context. So if you got that whole mapping of all the codes to whatever descriptions, you can feed that into the data sharing assist, and then with that additional context, you'll make a better evaluation. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that overall it's about the more information you give to the bot, the more accuracy you can expect out of it. Like if you're uploading the data set along with the metadata, the more accurate the result could be. Like it's related to human psychology as well. The more information we have, more accurate we can be about things.
Hey, hello. Hey, sorry to jump in here like a voice from God, right? But I'm just saying, okay, just now you had a question about whether it will be mandatory to use Cloak. Or was there a question about that? Yeah, I was behind. Yeah, okay. Jun Jie from MPA, is it? Yeah, hi. So you, as a public officer, you have to follow a set of rules when sharing data. So those rules are compulsory rules. So it's stated in IM for anonymization and all this. Whether you code it yourself, whether you use Cloak, you still have to follow the same rules. Okay, so what the value of the product is, it encoded the policy within the product itself. Using it guarantees you that you have complied and you are safe when sharing the data. Okay, I think that's the answer. Thank you.
Hi, Shanice. First of all, thanks to everyone for explaining everything really well, and I've learned a lot. My questions are about the signal marketplace for Grab. So I was wondering, like, what's your experience in pushing for the DPIs? Since I think there might be some resistance in, how fast the turnaround should be. And related to it is, I presume that Grab has a fairly big data engineering team, but for smaller size central teams, like, would you recommend a slightly different strategy, since maybe the DPIs may not be feasible or manageable for smaller teams? Thank you.
Right. Before that, sorry, can I clarify on the first question in terms of what do you mean when you're referring to how do I push for DPIs?
I guess for pushing for the technical owners, to commit to, like, okay, I would try to address whatever incidents within a certain timely manner, etc. So, like, how do you sort of get the push for it?
Right. Okay. So I think for the first question is there's a broader KPIs that we set. In terms of incident management, we have a broader framework that drives towards 0 breaches for incidents. So we tap on the same framework for DPIs. So KPIs are measured across the board. So that's basically how we use the same mental model around incident management to drive across all TDOs, because TDOs actually are also serving other roles and double heading across other areas. So that helps, and that's for the first part. On the second part is whether if you are a smaller setup in terms of data, would you require DPI? I think it depends. I think everyone has their own, takes their own flavor of it. I think the first question would be, would it make sense for you to even go into a mesh setup? Because a lot of this DPI or data governance really comes with higher ROI when your number of data consumers and producers increases. So it's a balance that you have to take. Some of this framework around management or management around of incidents might not matter because you're basically managing around the same team or same central team of folks. It could be the same standard that you set within the same team that ensures that all of these are met. Because if it's not met, you basically hurt your own colleague who's basically just across the room, right? So it's basically a balance that you have to take from org size perspective.
Okay, I guess people don't have any more questions for us and the speakers. Yep, okay, I gave everyone your 10 seconds, so please don't blame me if you think of any questions. I mean, you can still reach out to our speakers. So I think that let's wrap the session up here. Let our speakers have a very well-deserved break. Please join me in thanking all of them again. Thank you so much. So as you guys can see on screen, this is the second chance for